Flying used to be fun until I started doing it for a living.
What makes a Ghibli character so attractive and alluring? Why is it that we follow their stories feeling both nostalgia and something entirely new? How is it that these characters strike different chords in everyone's hearts, but the feeling they leave behind remains the same? I've been working out in the countryside for over a month now. At first, I jokingly called myself Sophie as I was cleaning, cooking, getting things done. And every day felt like an adventure. But that glow eventually faded, and I kind of started to feel like the chores were just chores. So, who would have thought? I found myself being frustrated. Like, why couldn't I just be chill? Why couldn't I carry myself grounded and present just like I see Sophie or Chihiro or, like this vibe? And that's when I realized the traits that these characters embody might just be the answers that we've been missing in our lives. First thing that stands out to me about these Ghibli female characters is that they find themselves alone, whether by choice or not. And it's a huge premise to their stories. Sophie is cursed. That's why she isolates herself from the rest of society. Chihiro finds herself separated from her parents and isolated in the spirit world. Mei and Satsuki become isolated when they move into the Japanese countryside knowing absolutely no one, and their dad is really busy trying to, provide for them. And even Kiki chooses separation as part of a tradition for young witches where they have to leave home for a year and figure out their own style, how to be a witch. But even though they find themselves alone, none of these characters end up spiraling. They don't whine about it, they just move forward. They settle in. And I think it comes down to 3 distinct traits that each of Ghibli's main female characters embodies that I think really carries them forward throughout the narrative. Now, most Ghibli worlds are going to be fantastical, even absurd. There are elements here that you cannot find in real life, and they bend reality, but they seem fine. They are unafraid. There's an absence of fear here, and that's how they carry themselves through the chaos of their very complex worlds. Now, it's not to say that they aren't scared at all. They know what being scared feels like, and oftentimes do. But because fear never gets to make the final decision for them, they can continue to move through the story. So for Chihiro, for example, it's not like she can get out of this situation. Her parents got turned into pigs, and she is now in the spirit realm. If she doesn't get over her fear, if she doesn't land a job, if she doesn't help at the bathhouse, she cannot save herself or her parents. So she has no choice. And this is exactly how she finds out just how capable she is. Because before the events of the story happen, we are introduced to Chihiro and we know she's a little scared. She's a little girl. She's never had to do things alone before. But as soon as she finds herself in a position where she has no choice but to do things that she once found scary, she quickly learns to let go of that fear. And she goes from being someone who's running down the stairs in fright to being able to scale walls for her friend. She learns to let go of the fear. It's not that it's not there, she acknowledges its presence, she adapts. The same can be said for Satsuki from My Neighbor Totoro. Satsuki is the older sister. She's kind of the one that's in between adult and child, but she is still a child, so she still feels fear. Her mother is sick and there is a possibility that she could die. She's in the hospital right now and there's no telling what can happen. But Satsuki can't do anything about that. It's not her choice whether her mom is sick or not. She chooses how to react to it, and most of the time, she is able to carry on as if she feels no fear. However, we see that she does feel it. It's still a part of her. She still worries about her mom. She can't stop living just because she's scared. There's a saying that goes, fear is a mile wide, but an inch deep. The feeling is only gonna stay until you actually do the thing. Once you do it, you realize the water's actually quite shallow,
and you're capable of much more than you were previously aware of. Instead of being wired for survival, you can be wired for success.
So that's the thing. These characters don't waste their energy just because something's unknown. Instead, they're gonna accept it. Chihiro can't leave the spirit realm unless she confronts her fear. Satsuki's just a kid. There's nothing she can do about her mom's illness. Sophie, she's already been cursed. If she allows fear to take over, she'll never get rid of her curse. And Kiki, she's magic. She's a witch. What does she have to be scared of? There's no point being scared, so instead, they just live. And because they've learned to tame the waters of fear, they're able to do what needs to get done in order to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And that's the second trait, their sense of duty. These female characters are driven by something. They are grounded by purpose, and they're unapologetic about what they want. They have ideas, morals, goals, and it just shows how much Miyazaki actually values this trait in women. He sees women as capable of anything, and he sees them as grounded. That means they can accomplish whatever they want because they know what they want and they stick to it. I love seeing this in Ghibli films because a lot of times there are moments of zero conflict, but because these female characters already have some kind of goal in mind and they're shooting towards it, we are emotionally invested in whatever becomes of that journey. And whether or not we see it through to the end, we're just happy to be by their side and experience what they're experiencing. Chihiro and Sophie, they want to free themselves. Chihiro obviously wants to save her parents and therefore leave the spirit realm. Sophie also wants to fix her curse. She wants to break it and go back to being herself. Satsuki is intent on finding Mei after she gets lost. And Kiki, after losing her powers, she knows that she has to get it back. These are things that they have to do, that they are unafraid to work towards, and they have a deep sense of duty, commitment to these goals. They're having to confront things that they've never had to confront. Sometimes they don't even have the skill for it, but they continue to try their hardest anyway, and an unobstructed willpower. They're actually empowered. And what's empowering them? Themselves, their beliefs, their morals. Because of that, they're actually able to feel the entire spectrum of human emotions. What do we love about Ghibli? We love that we can cry, we can laugh, we can shed a nostalgic tear as we're watching these films. And oftentimes it's because we feel the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows along with these characters. But these characters never, almost never, get stuck in those low spaces. They can feel pain, but at the end of the day, they can go to bed at night knowing that they are working towards something and they're going to accomplish that something because they have no other choice. They're alone. They're uncertain. They cannot be afraid. So let's get it done. I think one example of this that is so subtle and quiet is actually coming from My Neighbor Totoro, which is a seemingly bland movie. I hate to say it. I know that it's very good. I like it too. But when I first watched it, I kind of walked away being like, nothing really happened in that movie. I'm not mad about it, but it felt like nothing happened. Instead, when I looked at it again, I was like, oh, I just saw a beautiful film about moving and caring and having parents who are actually healthily attached. Therefore, the kids are healthily attached, aka they're not anxious, they're not avoidant, they are just kids. And the parents, especially the dad, shows up for his two daughters, Satsuki and Mei, and affirms everything that they bring to him, you know? He's having to work double time. He's making ends meet, he's making sure that their mother's okay, and he's taking care of these two young girls. Having to balance that is already a conflict in and of itself. So we've now made daily life the adventure, and we've put these two little girls at the center of it. They're not apologizing for wanting things. Even Mei, she's conflicted because her mother's sick, but she wants to spend time with her. So she ends up being upset because her mother doesn't get to come home, but she needs to stay in the hospital in order to get better. It's a natural emotion, a natural conflict for a child to think of. And it just makes sense that we are able to journey through the processing of that emotion with these characters. I'd say the same thing goes for Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. Even though she's trying to break this curse, she doesn't get frustrated that at every turn of the road, she's having to deal with one other small thing, or that she's having to help Howl along the way. She isn't chasing perfection. She's just showing up for the people and the dreams that she loves. That's enough for her. It almost becomes secondary for her to break her curse. It's not saying that she's not going to do it, but she's open to the fact that other things are going to come on during this path. Same thing goes for Chihiro. She's focused on getting herself and her parents back to the real world. However, the more time that she spends in the spirit realm, the calmer that she becomes, and the more attached she is to the people that she's meeting here, to the point where she's just helping to offer a helping hand. These are her morals. This is her value. This is how she sticks and shows up for people. So she helps the stink monster, I believe. I don't remember his name. She helps the stink monster, she helps No Face, and she most definitely helps Haku. These are people that she deeply cares about, and she's doing it because that is who she is at her core. So we've talked about how they're unafraid, and they also have this deep sense of duty. How does that make a character or a person who is able to help others while also prioritizing themselves? And the answer to that lies in the most important, and I think the rarest trait that we see not only in film but in real life, and that is someone who is experiencing this is the ability to not be anxious, to be not neurotic, be present in every moment. And even in those moments of responsibility, high stakes, pain, you still show up being your full self and knowing exactly how you're going to react because you know your boundaries. You know where you stand. There's a peace with who they are and what they have. So when you look at these characters, they do cry. They struggle. Kiki lost her powers. She's now worried that she can't speak to Gigi. She's worried that she can't fly. And even though a few seconds ago she was complaining that flying has now become her living and therefore she doesn't find enjoyment in it, the moment that she loses her witch powers and is unable to fly, everything rolls out the window and she's like, oh my gosh, I gotta get this back. But the way that she approaches it, she's not spiraling. The movie doesn't have a 10-minute sequence where she's just crying her eyes out and stuck in a depressive episode. It was always meant to be part of her story. So instead of resisting the moment, they enter it. They're allowed to, because they are actually quite simple on the inside. They've balanced their inner selves. And because of that, they can then look out into their world and reflect that onto other people. This is why they can actually help all the other characters. Kiki provides so much for the community that she's become a part of. Mei and Satsuki become friends with Shaved Head. What's his face? I wish I had HBO Max. I don't. Moving on, Chihiro helps a bunch of people in the spirit realm. Sophie is an integral part of Howl's development, because Howl, he is neurotic. He wants to be free. He wants to be himself, but he hasn't really been able to do that because of how he's been manipulated throughout his life and because of how he's had to show up as different identities in different places. Sophie grounds him because she's already grounded herself. She's already at peace with who she is, and therefore she can fill Howl's cup because she's already filled her own. In these complex worlds that these characters live in, maybe there's a war going on, maybe there's a conflict, there's an evil person running a bathhouse, whatever it is. Even in that complexity, because they know themselves and they've grounded who they are, everything is quite simple. And it kind of speaks to this idea that if you think there's a problem that needs to be solved, that is the problem. And if you're looking for solutions, you'll never find it. It's because if you truly understand a situation, you'll realize that there is no problem and you already have the solution. Because it's so simple. There are usually no problems in life if you change your perception so that it reflects the lack of a problem. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but let me explain. I think the easiest way to see it is probably in Spirited Away, because it just looks like a huge problem. If your parents got turned into pigs and you found yourself stuck in a spirit realm where you had to perform these disgusting tasks in order to maybe get back to your parents and maybe get back to the real world, but also your name is slowly being forgotten, and if you forget your name, did Chihiro have to make some massive gains physically? No, she didn't. Did she have to make deals? Kind of, but mostly things just happened to her and she navigated them being herself. Based on her kindness and her intuition, she was able to quickly, I'd say quickly, get herself out of this situation. And it's because she stopped thinking about the problem and she just started doing. She was not a thinker, she was a doer. And that's the thing about these movies. There's seemingly no plot, right? It's between the lines. It's up to the viewer. Everyone gets a different experience, but we walk away with that same feeling because we understand that these characters are really just stepping into themselves. They're becoming who they were always meant to be. They're changed by the experiences, but they're also kind of fortifying what was already within them. It was already inside. They've just been shown what they're capable of. And by emitting that stronger, higher frequency, that frequency of love and kindness, we see that instead of running away from the strangeness, from the scariness, they actually embrace it. So they start to make friends with the demons. They start to be on the side of the judged. They tell them that it's okay. And now they've gone from being the person who was in conflict to the person that's solving conflicts for everybody else. And the way that I think this helps all of us, the way that we should maybe apply Ghibli movies in our lives, is understanding that if we fill our own cup, because being at peace with who you are means that you now can turn outwards to the world and just reflect that, emit that peace. Other people are going to be attracted to that because all we want is that. And then helping others doesn't even drain you, because when your cup is full, you're no longer pouring from emptiness. You're overflowing with your own presence. And that speaks volumes. That changes the world from within.
Just follow your heart and keep smiling.